Nothing in this recording is intended as investment advice, and the people in this recording may hold positions in the companies they talk about. Do not make any investment based solely on a tip or recommendation. Please do your own research.
Hello and welcome. Today I'm joined by Ignacio Mehech, who's CEO at CleanTech Lithium. How are you today, Ignacio?
Hi, Zach. Good to see you again. A pleasure to be here.
Well, we met in the autumn, and since then, CleanTech has made lots of progress. Perhaps not so much on the share price, but maybe we can talk about that later. What's the latest, really, in terms of developments on the ground?
Yeah, Zach, I remember when we met back in September, and I was telling you that our focus was on obtaining the SEOL, this special lithium operations contract in Chile, and on delivering the pre-feasibility study. And now I can proudly say that we have met those two milestones. The SEOL has been announced by the Chilean government and is just pending a final rubber stamp by the Controller's office. And the PFS was released and is very attractive in both in NPV and in CapEx and OpEx numbers. We have delivered our promises and now are looking at the next stage of development.
And what is the next stage? What are the milestones that we're looking for?
Well, first of all, as we announced, we have engaged Catfield and Freeman to support us, assist us in the selection of a strategic partner to develop the Laguna Verde project at project level. That process is ongoing and should be ending by the end of the year. There's been substantial interest, so I believe we will be choosing which partner we'll be selecting for the future stage of development. And in parallel, there are two processes that we want to move forward. One is the dual listing in Australia in the ASX. We're taking all the steps there and should have more news by the third quarter of this year. And also the important environmental impact study that I want to start preparing to submit by next year. So we are ready to start production as soon as possible.
Right, so production is the magic word, and obviously at the moment we're in a commodities, well, generally a commodities boom, supply issues as well. Lithium price has recovered, but your valuation, 13 million, is the same as it was, a year ago. There hasn't really been much change there. What do you think that the market is missing about CleanTech at the moment?
Well, at the moment, it was that we didn't have the SEOL. And actually, I have to say, we are quite disappointed with the stock performance in the past few months. We have delivered the news that we and the important milestones that we had committed to, and I believe we are absolutely undervalued as a company. We were discussing before that we had this issue where a shareholder sold their old participation in the company just before we announced the SEOL, when the stock price was going up, and that really hurt us. They had their own reasons. They needed to fund another project. But if you look at the fundamentals, we are truly undervalued, and I think there's a big opportunity. And now, when the SEOL is signed with the government, the PFS is truly understood by all of our stakeholders, that the company will get a revaluation.
And as far as where we are now, you've done everything, you've hit all the milestones that you promised before. Maybe going forward will be easier than it has been to date. That is the opportunity, I suppose, for those looking at your company for the first time.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, Zach, beyond what we did last September when you and I met, we haven't done a lot of engagement in the past 18 months. So actually, at the moment, I am in Europe and I'm looking to meet as many investors as possible just to let them know what we're talking about, all the highlight of the recent progress that we have made with the SEOL agreement, the PFS, the strategic partner process, and also the technology processes or the downstream processes that we are undertaking both in the US and Chile to produce the first batches of lithium carbonate for interested third parties to qualify, and also in Chile on the end-to-end process that we have in our PFS, just to prove with numbers, with real numbers, the strength of that flow sheet.
One of the issues, obviously, you talked about you've been quiet for 18 months. 18 months ago, I probably say that things were in a sort of bearish situation. Now, metals prices, commodities prices have risen generally. Is that what you're seeing, that there's, the lithium market is hot, people are interested in lithium? Is that changed?
Yes, I have to say, since I joined the company, I've been saying that there was a disconnect between reality and the price of lithium. But lately, we're seeing in the last 8 to 9 months, we have seen a steep increase in the price of lithium. And in the end, you have to look at fundamentals beyond sentiment, and fundamentals are very strong, not only for EVs, but also for energy storage, for energy generation. And I also think robotics is going to be a trend in the future. All of these autonomous robots and machinery moving around, they all need lithium batteries. So adding those three up, I think lithium demand is very well expected for the future. And now you're seeing also analysts come to the same conclusion. Canaccord, for example, they have just risen their long-term price above the price actually that we use for our pre-feasibility study. And they're also saying they forecasting deficits for the next 10 years. So the fundamentals are clearly strong, and I expect people will come to understand that and regain interest in lithium. So for new investors, it's also the story is really good.
Right. Now, I suppose with the Iran situation, all $100 a barrel, you don't really feel like filling up with petrol. You prefer to plug in your EV and drive off like that.
Yeah, that's driving short-term demand. At least we're seeing it all around the world. But again, it's the fundamentals that really will drive the business. This juncture is clearly making people aware of the risks of topping up your car with petrol, not only in cost but also in availability in some places in the world, and that it's much easier, cleaner, and simpler to have an electric car that you can charge at home.
Obviously, we talked about the plus side and the road to production and everything else. You could argue that you've done a lot of the dirty work and the heavy lifting now under your tenure as CEO. So, that's a big tick. What are the risks? Because obviously earlier in the week there was the legal claim RNS, and maybe one or two people, sort of scratching their heads about that.
Yeah, of course, the legal claim is out there. Just want to reiterate that we firmly reject these allegations, and we're actively responding through the appropriate legal channels. And importantly to everyone, this complaint is not material to the operation, the SEOL, or our strategic plans. We continue to advance our projects as planned, and we'll update the market when there are any news. But in the end, it's like a satellite situation of some properties that are not part of the SEOL, a company that is not the awardee of the SEOL. So it's being managed appropriately with our lawyers.
Finally, you're sitting there with the 30 million market cap, which seems a bit unfair. Are you assuming that the closer that you get to production, the better the re-rate will happen, or the re-rate will start happening?
Well, yeah. Well, first of all, I think the signing of the SEOL is a very important milestone. We have been awarded the SEOL, but when you see that picture with the Chilean president signing that contract for 40 years with CleanTech, I think that's materially very important for the company. I also think that we plan to do a list in Australia, and that is advancing. I think that can get us a re-rating, as well as our peers in Australia have massively different market caps to us, with projects that are very similar or smaller than ours. And also, there will be some analyst notes released in the next weeks. I understand one as soon as Monday, so reach out to us and to me if you want to get a hold of that note. I think it's going to be very positive for the company, given where we are at the moment and the valuation that we have. There's going to be a lot of information there, and it will show, the next milestones and how they might impact our stock price.
Yeah, I mean, I think that what you said, that you've been quite obviously trying to get things over the line. In a bear market, I suppose nobody's interested in explorer developers at all, and then in the bull market, you've got hundreds of companies to choose for, and it's very difficult to be the one that people notice because everybody's shouting, raising their hand as well. So is that something you're aware of, that you need to be maybe reaching a bit higher, shouting a bit louder, that kind of thing?
Yeah, definitely. We've kept a low profile in the past year, until we met our milestones. I said, well, if we have nothing new to share, why go out there and share it? But now we do have very important news on the SEOL and the PFS, and also the strategic partner process. I think once we announce that strategic partner will also help us with our re-rating. So now, and that's precisely why I'm here in Europe at the moment, because we want to be engaging with investors and telling all the good stories about CleanTech and the work we've done to date, and how close we are to be becoming the next company producing lithium in Chile after more than 30 years.
Ignacio Mehech, CEO at CleanTech Lithium, thank you very much indeed.
Thanks, Zach. A pleasure being here.
Thank you for listening. Remember to visit our website for more news and other podcasts at www.share-talk.com.